Ida, pleasure to have you. Your dad got you into drag racing when you were just 8 years old. Now, was that something you were already into, or did he kind of nudge you into it and then you got passionate about it later?
No, I'm grown up at the track. So basically, I've been at the track since I was 3 weeks old. My family's been at the racetrack every summer, and basically, my dad had a shop building race engines and working on cars, everything from American muscle cars to race cars. So I've grown up in the sport, and from an early age, obviously, I knew I wanted to race. And when I raced, 8 was the lowest age. So I had been waiting for that day to come where I could actually get into the car. My dad did build me a car, and I got into it. And funny thing is, a lot of people talk about the fact that obviously the sport you get into is a lot of the times influenced from what you grew up with, what your parents may be into. But both me and my sister grew up at the same racetracks. She's 3 years younger than me, so she's had a lot of opportunities to get into the same cars that I've raced, and she took a complete different path. So it just goes to show that the influence helps, but none of us were ever pushed to do it. It was something that we pushed for.
You've made the transition, I would say, from Europe to America very smooth, and not just on the track, but like your connection with the fans here. Like, I would say that's pretty uncommon, honestly, for American fans to adapt to European racers coming in. Like, how did you manage that transition so naturally?
I think what helped me a lot was that I had built a really strong fan base on social media for many, many years. I raced drag bikes before I started racing Top Fuel. So when we did that and we had our own team build our own bikes, I shared all the behind the scenes, and obviously we had a lot of success running in the European Championship and the Scandinavian Championship with the drag bike, winning 2 championships, and we were able to showcase that. And then I was able to take people behind the scenes when we started our Top Fuel journey and set those records and won that championship. And I feel like my fan base were almost 50% US based when I get over here. And when you have a fan base that's, let's say, 250, 300,000, and half of it is US, at least people knew who I was when I came in. And I think that helped me a lot because they knew how hard I had fought to come in there. I wasn't just a new name that instantly popped up on the scene. They knew what I had to do to get there.
Do you have a pick for a NASCAR Cup Championship? Like, do you have any favorite drivers? I know you're new, but it's like, who are you kind of looking at?
I can't say I do because obviously it's my first time at the track. So ask me again when I've been there, and maybe one of them has kind of taken an interest.
I know obviously you're moving up quickly in the NHRA ranks. Like, is racing in NASCAR and racing in other leagues an aspiration of yours? Like, how do you see that long term?
No, drag racing, I've dabbled with other sports, and I mean, we did a lot of dirt biking years ago when I also raced the drag bikes and so on. I have a love for motorsport in general, but drag racing is it for me. I mean, I want to be the world champion, and I want to do that several times. I mean, this is my dream and goal. I'm not completely closing doors to other sport or other classes in drag racing, but it will be drag racing for sure.
I'm curious to hear your take on the differences, I would say, in the race culture between Europe and the US. Like, what are those stark differences you've noticed?
Yes, so basically in Europe, if we talk about passion for the sport and the way you race, Europe and US has a lot of similarities. But in Europe, we don't have as big budgets as we do over here. We don't have the brand new parts, we don't have the new cars. Usually a lot of it is already being raced in US, and when it kind of out of date over here, we buy it to Europe. Not all the time, but a lot of it. Second part of it is that everybody that works, they do it just because they love it. Everybody on my team, when we won our championship, was taking all their time off work to come spend it with us at the track, sleeping on air mattresses in the trailers, just doing it out of the pure passion of winning a championship and loving the sport. And obviously out here it's different because everybody is on payroll, it's bigger budgets, this is everybody's way to support, their family out here. And I'm not saying it has taken away from the love of the sport, but it's just very cool to see the passion in Europe being that strong.
Now, when you're going back to kind of the Europe and US, like, what major differences do you notice in the tracks, if anything?
Yeah, so the track difference is, obviously we still run the same length, it's 1,000 foot for the Top Fuel and funny cars. But the main difference is track prep. Obviously, a lot of these tracks over here in US, they get a lot more use. Like they have several races per year. They might have other sportsman class races in between. They prep them a little bit differently, and there's more cars going down track. When you have 20, 25 top fuels and funny cars going down track, the track gets better in a way that it doesn't do in Europe in the same way when we don't have as many. And usually in Europe, your strongest track prep is up until the 8 mile. And then the rest of the track, you can feel that you're not as glued to the surface, so to say. Usually cars are running a little bit looser, and that usually affects how hard we can push it at that point, and that affects the top speeds. So in Europe, I still hold the European record for top speed, and it's 321 miles per hour, while over here I've been 334 miles per hour, running similar ETs, a little quicker, but at least it's that's the major difference of it, I would say.
Now, you've made waves obviously in the NHRA ranks. Now, I think you've went into this, but any big challenge in terms of on the track you feel in terms of the drag racing culture and competition? Like, do you notice a big difference in that competition in the US versus Europe?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in Europe, not taking away from anything we're doing there, great racers, great tracks, but we get less track time. We only have 6 to 8 races per year. Over here, a full season is 20 races, and then usually most teams do testing in between. So they have so many more rounds than I have in a car. Even coming over, doing 2 seasons in Europe, that's not even a full season over here. So when they came over and they talked about me being kind of a seasoned driver, I still had less runs than a lot of these drivers that have come in here that only did their first season. Not to mention you racing guys that have raced for 20 plus years and won multi-time champions. So obviously there's really hard competition. Second part of it is that since we're not fully funded and we don't have the money to go testing everything we want to, we can't race all the races. I feel like I'm constantly a little bit behind because everybody gets more chances at hitting the track and finding their stride in the car, because that's what it's all about. The car I drove in Europe, I felt so comfortable in right away, and then we made plenty of laps where I got better as a driver, because the more you become one with your car to the point where you don't even think about driving it, you just do it because you know how to do it, that's where you get dangerously good. And I'm not really there yet in this car, because this car is completely different. Obviously it's the same class and they have a lot of similarities, but they're still built a little bit different. The chassis are a little bit different. I have a canopy car here, so a closed cockpit car, while in Europe I had an open cockpit car. A lot of these things makes a difference on the vision of the car, how well you see the track, but also how the sound of the car is taken in, how you feel the car. So I'm still working on all of that to kind of get back to the same feeling I had in the car in Europe when I feel like I'm completely one with the car. I'm not there yet, but we're still running with the pack, and that's exciting for me because I feel like when I reach that point where I feel that comfortable, I know that we are going to be dangerous out there too.
Any specific culture shock moments that stick out to you about maybe your first few races out here?
No, I would say like in general coming over here, the biggest difference is, like the food. I miss the food back at home.
That's what I thought you were gonna go with it.
Yeah.
Specifically, so it's like, what's the food you're like, oh man, like we can't, like we say the Americans do it well, but they don't.
It's so hard to say. I mean, I come from a small island, and that small island, a lot of what we ate were locally sourced. Okay. So, I could go and literally pick up milk and look at the picture on the milk carton and say, I know that farmer because I did the electricity in his farm. So it's like, it's more that, but also I had my small spots back at home where I knew I could pick up the best sushi. I could pick up, the best salad bowls or whatever it might be, or just homemade meals for lunch that I don't find the same way out here.
I would say, what's been the happiest moment since coming to race here?
Our first debut race, for many reasons. I mean, obviously I came over here in February last year, and we had worked until August to build that team. My crew chief, John Schaefer, did all that from, sourcing trailers to building cars and making sure we had tools and parts and everything in the car. But it was so much work with everything to go with it. And when we were ready to hit the track for the first race of the year in Brainerd, I qualified, but I had to race the number 1 qualifier and 4-time world champion Steve Torrance. And obviously people thought that that was impossible, and we actually beat them on a hole shot. And a hole shot is so when the driver leaves before the other driver, so we did have a slower ET, but I still crossed the finish line first. And that will still be my highlight that I've ever had so far, because nobody really thought we could do it, and we pulled it off, and we made it to the semis that day.
Now we have to hear more about the story about you running a car that was originally used by Leah Pruitt. So it somehow made its way to Europe and then ended up with you. What's like the backstory?
Well, basically, a lot of the cars in Europe and a lot of the chassis, they're bought from teams over in US. So the car that I drove and actually won the championship with in 2023 was a car that Leah had previously driven, which worked out well for me because we're basically the same length and the same size. So the car was very well made for someone her size, and that I think that made it fit me so well right away. I felt so comfortable in that car getting right in, and obviously having the strong team I had behind me was the biggest part of our success, but it didn't hurt to have a car that was built for someone that was very similar to myself.
Now, you know, I've heard that you're a hardcore blue-collar engineer and that you've had quite a few jobs before you kind of jumped into racing full-time. You want to take us through some of the different jobs you had?
Well, basically, I'm an electrician. Like that's what I got my education for. Worked as an electrician for several years. Then started managing a store that sold electric and plumbing supplies and heating solutions and bathroom renovations and stuff like that. And worked in management for that same company. So I was actually at the same company for 9 years, a little more before I started my own business, and actually worked in marketing. So I had my own marketing business for 3 years before I moved over here, and worked with a lot of both race teams but also businesses building their brand, working with everything from social media to building websites. And during the COVID years, I have to take every job I can. So I've been everything from co-hosting the morning show on the radio. I've been a mechanic for Porsche Sprint Challenge race team for a year, and yeah, it's all great experiences that I feel like I can take with me and everything I do.
Oh wow. Now I assume I know the answer, but electric versus gas, what are you choosing?
Yeah, I'm all for internal combustion. Like I love that.
You got to tell me this is wrong, but there's one incident when a guy asked you if you would be his backup flower pot girl. What was that like? Like what's going on?
No, well, basically, you know, when we do our burnouts at the track, after that you have to have someone that runs in front of you and points you where you're going to line you up at the track, which is an important job. And you in the car are watching this guy and he's showing what to do. Right now I have a guy named Kyle do it for me. Back in the days, there were a lot of so-called backup girls. So usually they had a pretty girl in their high heels running in front and showing where to go. And I had this one guy that asked me if I wanted to be a backup girl for him when I was there, and I just said that's not really me.
Well, I guess this is a good, you know, transition to that question. Like, do you feel more of a need, especially with your male counterparts, where it's like you got to prove yourself or do a lot better just to be like equal?
When you get into it, you do often feel the need to prove yourself. I do feel like I have already proven myself that I am out here. Obviously, right now, I'm not running as strongly as I want to do, but I've won championships out here, and I've shown that I can be here. But I do think that us women might put an extra pressure on ourselves to show that. But I wouldn't say it's for the guys that we're racing with or for the race teams. I've never felt that pressure from my teammates or other people I'm working with. It's more that pressure from the outside of some people might not thinking we can do it. And when I got into racing bikes, I was the first female to ever win a race in that class. I was the first female to ever win a championship in that class. I still hold the highest ever top speed by a woman on a motorcycle in drag racing. A lot of these things, when we did it, it seemed impossible when we got into it because nobody had ever done it before. So people kept telling me I didn't belong there, it wasn't a class for ladies, and all these things. And obviously, you shouldn't care what people say, but you do kind of feel that need to prove them wrong sometimes. And we did, but I understand what you're saying with that.
Yeah, and even playing off that, like obviously growing up in Finland, like I assumed there weren't a lot of mainstream, you know, drag racing idols that you're looking up to. Like who kind of inspired you when you were coming up?
Well, actually, both Sweden and Finland, where I raced the most when I was a kid, have a lot of drag strips, a lot of great racers. a lot of motorsport. We don't have NASCAR over there, but we have great rally, we have great drag racing, and one of the females that ran Top Fuel was Anita Mäkelä. She raced and she won a lot of both championships and races. Actually, my old teammate Susanne Kalin, she raced Top Fuel when I still raced Junior Dragster. So we kind of got to make that full circle and race together for the last year when I was over there. And I do feel like there was a lot of strong female role models over there to look up to. So I'm happy about that.
Do you feel now like, you know, a pressure, responsibility of kind of carrying that torch and then being an inspiration now for the younger drivers? Is that something you think about?
I mean, yes and no. I wouldn't say specifically for female drivers, but just for the next generation. I feel like being a role model out here, even though it's not the reason I got into this, I always say it might sound selfish, but I'm here for me. I'm here because I love the sport and this is my dream, not to prove anyone wrong in that regard or to be that role model. But when you are here and you know you have those eyes on you, I want to be that positive role model. And actually JCM Racing has this great program with the junior driver development. So we actually got a bunch of kids right now that we were able to kind of mentor and bring into the sport. And we want to help them with things, not just the financial part, but things that will make them continue to race for years to come. So right now I am doing several kind of seminars with them about how to talk to sponsors, how to build a sponsorship deck, how do you handle your PR, social media, but also the mental part of it, because guy or girl, when you win out here, everybody's not gonna love you. And that's just a part of it. And I've had kids come up to me that are 9 or 10 years old and said they just won 3 races in a row and they got bullied. And that's not something that's, you know, specific for drag racing or whatever. It's just in general. I mean, I did gymnastics when I was a kid. If you're doing well, people don't always like that. And it's not something that just happens for kids. That's gonna carry with you all the way in life. But we want to help them deal with that now, so it's not going to become a problem, or that it's not something that holds them back from continuing racing. We want them to have all the tools that when they graduate from junior, they feel ready to take on the next class and can be the next generation of racers.
Do you have a gas station snack or like fast food that you like anything that sticks out here?
I did stop today actually, and I bought the popcorners.
Okay, popcorners.
Yeah, I got a poppy and popcorners that I had today in the cars.
This can be one of two answers. What's your favorite dish here in the US, or what's like one thing people told you was going to be really good and you were like, this sucks?
Well, I like a good steak, so so I'm like, anywhere you can go and you can get a really good steak, I'm fine with that. Home cooked is the best, obviously, if you have someone that can do that. So yeah, I think that's something I really like.
Okay. Now, any pre-race like superstitions, routines you have, like anything, you know, anything like that?
No, it's actually funny. So obviously I have routines because I'm a big believer in routines where, you know, you do the same thing every time. It's a less chance of missing something, and that sets you up for success. But I'm not superstitious in a way where if my routines get, you know, someone interrupts me or whatever it might be, it doesn't bother me. Because I've actually had this years ago when I raced a drag bike. That year, all year I had a necklace on. I had a necklace on when I drove, and it just happened to be on, and I just kept always having it on. And then the last race of the year, first run on the track, I noticed I didn't have it on me when I was in the lineup. And I asked my mom, I was like, can you get my necklace? I just kind of like having it on, I've always had it. She ran back, and just before I was gonna like get ready, she came with it. I put it on and I felt good. Crashed my bike, ran, you know, 200 miles per hour on my stomach in my leathers, spinning around, getting up, and I thought, screw superstitious. It didn't do me anything. That was kind of one of those things where I was like, if I do this, it's gonna feel good. Yeah, it didn't help at all. So after that, I can say I have no superstitions.
Yeah. Now, last question, looking into the future, you've had such a diverse, you know, occupational background, racing, you know, marketing. Like, do you see yourself going into media, broadcasting? Like, is that an aspiration long term?
I mean, I wanna keep racing for as long as I can. I mean, I see myself doing this for 20 more years. Like that's the dream. Right now, the main focus is finding money to keep racing. I mean, right now I don't have next year funded. I don't have a full season this year, and I don't have money to go racing next year. So that's my main goal, to get sponsors so I can go race for the next years to come. But I want to win championships out here. Like I want to collect several of them, and I want to do great things in the sport. And for me, the most important thing is to be the best driver I can be. I want people to be able to look back at what I did and say that I was a really good driver. When I feel like I've done everything I can in this sport and I feel like I'm done with it, I would like to stay in the sport in some way. And what that might be, I don't know, but I have dabbled with the broadcasting side, and this year I've actually signed with NHRA.TV, so in Chicago is going to be my first on-air event when I'll actually be doing live commentating with the drivers at the track, so we'll see how that feels. A little nervous.
I love it. Awesome. Thank you.
Awesome, thanks.